I think we're going live. We are live. There you go. By
Hello,
magic.
hello. Magic, magic. The magic of the rover.
I know. It's our first one from the barn via Starlink, the Starlink non-professional, which seems to be touch. There is no wood in a Land Rover apart from here.
So is there a big price difference in the non-professional versus the professional, or is there a whole bunch of other like benefits? What's the pitch?
Oh, there's a massive difference. The professional one is like 2,500, and I think at the moment the non-professional new one is 299. So that is quite a sizable difference. We're all suffering from hay fever. It's
yes, sorry guys, I might just mute myself every once in a while.
I have honestly no idea how pollen, which is basically necessary for all life,
right,
is somehow something we can be so allergic to.
Right.
But I'm in the middle of the country, and yeah, there is. I seem to be okay today.
That's nice. I'm 2 allergy pills into the day already, and it just won't quit. So,
I thought
hello, Carl.
Were you allergic or just needing a coffee, Carl?
Oh, I'm massively allergic, and especially in grass season like today.
Is that what it is? A grass?
Yeah, it's grass pollen at the moment. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, the worst I get in London is the grass from the parks, Hyde Park especially, because it's massive. And then the other ones, those trees. What are those ridiculous trees that are along the Thames that also have like little sharp bits that go into your eyes? They're especially nice. Anyway, talking about sharp bits that get into your eyes, iFixit has stopped supporting Samsung Repair because of their lack of commitment to fixing devices. Can you believe that a top-end handset manufacturer probably doesn't want to have devices fixed but sell you a new one? I can't believe that's true. Can you?
I can. I mean, come on, planned obsolescence, buy the next device, is their business model. I mean, it's like at the 6G Summit, the Volvo woman was saying, you guys as an industry, she's in there, she does everything but the cars. It was a great presentation she did. And she's like, you all are crazy. We build things, it takes 3 to 5 years before the project is really ready to go. We build it for 13. It's supposed to last for 20.
But they do. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, cars now do last for.
Because they built it that way.
Yeah.
Samsung does not.
Yeah, well, but I do get it, because obviously, really, a 20-year-old car has no real difference to it other than the little screen in the front. Obviously, I mean, I don't have any big screens. Well, not ones that I haven't put in there. But I suppose, a 20-year-old phone is probably not going to be a great experience. But
if you consider the circular economy of like most of Africa still being on, flip phones or 4G phones or even older devices, there could have been a plan to take in, refurbish, and resell, which would have had cost-cutting implications to everybody along that chain and been more sustainable. But
arguably, you will get higher-end devices into people's hands quicker, which should foment sales of your higher-end devices. No? If you give people a 5-year-old Volvo, they will want the new one. Whereas if they get used to a 20-year-old one, they'll go, you know what? Like Cuba now in their cars, it's like let's keep this 50 Chevy going.
Well, I think that's where the challenge is, right? To say that where's the balance in that?
Well, I suppose that's the thing where we have Virgin Media O2 COO Rob Orr saying, "Stop the smartphone swindle." Is this on the same topic, or are we talking about the contract subsidies?
I don't know, Carl. You're the carrier expert. What do you think?
I haven't seen the press release, if I was brutally honest. What is he saying?
They are just saying stop the smartphone swindle, which I assumed, and you know what they say about assumptions, followed on from the same, but it is actually charging people for a phone they already own. So if you have a £50, £50, €50 bundle that includes a smartphone for an 18-year contract, and you carry on paying the £50 way past after 18 months.
All right. So, I mean, this is where I guess the American plans and specifically the Canadian plans vary because they split the two. One's like a finance agreement for the handset, and one's a tariff.
Now, you see, I had a message. I mean, obviously, it's a wrong message, and we'll come into these process. I've had even more fun and games with broken processors and network operators. But I did get them. I've been a SIM only and bought my phones directly from the manufacturers for about 5-10 years now. But I did have a message that affects about your contract is now up for renewal, and that bear in mind that your phone and your SIM contracts are separate. I mean, the facts. So I assume we're adopting that now, are we? Or
I don't know what network.
Voda.
Okay.
I know there might have been EE. I'm just so multidextrous when it comes to SIMs.
Promiscuous is the word.
I'll take a SIM from anybody.
He's SIM frisky.
I am very SIM frisky. Especially you should see me with eSIMs. I mean, I was bad enough with physical,
right.
But eSIMs is just.
Well, this is what I was asking you earlier, and I, it's really the exact same thing. I mean, there's a ton of sustainability in this eSIM world to a large extent. But how does it really work? Because at the end of the day, if the carrier who's providing this connectivity decides, it's not like they're a network, really. They are just, I mean, some of them just have whole bunches of QR codes, right? I mean, as compared to, say, like what you guys are putting in the vehicles and how, the layers of network security you can build in. This eSIM is it's like the SIM shop of old, right?
You mean the cheap and dirty eSIM resellers?
Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of things. But I think that's no different, is it, than the physical SIM? I mean, you could have. This used to happen when people would buy 50,000 eSIMs and sell them where they shouldn't sell them, and after 10,000, the rest of the 40,000 were turned off, but somebody's bought them all.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily going to change, but
no. And I think that. Oh, go ahead.
No.
I think the carriers kind of fought it, thinking that it would stop private networks and multi-MZ or single MZ roaming solutions. They fought it for so long, and really it didn't. All it did was make those SIM shops much easier because they don't have to have their kiosks in the airports and all of that kind of stuff, really. I mean, it was great to get my T-Mobile eSIM downloaded because I lost my phone, and it was extremely helpful, but
it's gone are the days of I think Vodafone had a whole team, didn't they, where they'd meet people at airports with physical SIMs and Blackberries even. And but yeah, those days of massive sustainability. But so I mean, the eSIM, but arguably, I mean, the SIM's the easiest part to it's one of these but we have saved a huge amount by having eSIMs. I think it's fantastic. I mean, the amount of logistics,
totally,
especially for an MVNO. I think the MNO, but again, the MNOs, it's kind of, there's no point having a commitment to net zero and having to have retail stores or maintain retail stores and maintain logistics just around the physical SIM. But they still see that as I think there is a link here in that they still see the physical SIM and the contract as a tie just like
and right to the device, like you started the conversation with, right? You know, that's also where they get to sell them.
And that is why I am so sim frisky on principle.
I mean, there's a lack of strategic thinking, I think, because you know, back in the day, the networks thought they were everything to everyone. They missed a trick of not moving into financial services and other things related things that would have been perfect CRM exploitation, for want of a better word, on their part of the consumer. In steps Apple and Samsung to a degree, but mainly Apple disintermediates the networks and grows to at one point the world's biggest business, and they're still in the top few. And then if you get rid of the connectivity device, i.e. a physical SIM, to become an eSIM, the networks have still not reacted to Apple disintermediating them. The eSIM is going to do it further. Where do they go? And if you look at the valuations, particularly in Europe, they're valued as a commodity, a utility player. And I don't think that's going to change. I think that boat's been missed royally by these guys.
I suppose that's all of the, and I mean, you see that with the car companies is nuts, right? You look at Rivian and Tesla versus GM and Ford. It's all over, isn't it? The new tech stock will always be flavor of the month and be easier to short, dare I say, and play the market with.
I think for me, what you were saying though about valuation is so super important, right? And I think I've said this before about different metrics and how do we really, when does that actually start to count? You know, things that aren't just, how many subscribers and how much ARPU, right? And like leakage you were talking about, network leaking their spectrum, and instead of, Kohler would tell you that, plumbing is sexy. And we talk about a dumb pipe, but it's really just about perspective. And if they really just stop, trying to, because it's like you said, Apple's they didn't fight that delta between them and Apple in capturing the consumer at all. And yes, there were all these wonderful sustainable benefits of eSIM, actually happening. But I don't know, I think there needs to be a perspective change. I mean, how much leakage of spectrum happens, Christian?
So this was, I think we started talking about this before going live about, because Frankie's been in the 6G summit and about network slicing. And obviously, I don't think very much network slicing goes on yet. And obviously what we're doing in the private 5G space, which will be private 6G at some point, you could argue is actually slicing, because we only get a small slice to play with in the CBRS, etc. spectrum space. But ultimately, I think the reason I was saying that is that sort of working as well with like Telet, which I think is the 5th MNO in the UK.
MNO go Telet.
The Telet, yes, they boom. I mean, they were. The reason I'm sort of coming the long way around on this is that we obviously had a 5G network in an area that, in theory, the MNOs only had 4G, but in practice, we could see the leakage of that cell affecting our cell peak times when their power had been cranked up to the max, and we've seen Telet basically said, I mean, they've got 60 of these in Liverpool managing traffic lights, and obviously traffic lights are generally in areas that have, and I mean, it's something that they have to live with, and had to do spectrum hopping and all sorts of solutions to get around it. So, I mean, slicing, I think there's a lot of reasons. Slicing hasn't just not happened because it's another thing, buzzword in the network, in the industry, that hasn't happened. And obviously there's now Ofcom. We're going to be part of, again, with some of these sandboxes that they're doing to look at how
the joiner sandbox.
But the theory of slicing, I think, is, well, just like any slicing of a cake. You know, in theory, you get nice 6 equal slices, but somebody gets a big one. Don't know if you can say.
Or somebody gets the one with all the like roses of icing in the corner, you know. Yeah. That is like everybody's want.
Yeah, or I get the one the normal word that's quite normal. Once you cut the 2 ends off, spells a rude word, which always makes my day. But yeah, so network slicing is not really. I think, you know, at the end of the day, you just have to separate things out, and yeah, we'll see. But it hasn't happened in 4G. It hasn't happened in 5G, and the reality is, spectrum and network planning is quite complex. You can't just take something, and even in the where we are in, you know, one of the events that we're going to be in 6 different times in the same showground, it will be different every event depending on where people have put vehicles, tractors. Like one of the events is shocking because everyone turns up with tractors, and guess what? People don't realize they're not like the old tractors. You know, the modern tractors are, you know, 3 stories tall almost. They block everything. But yeah, so network slicing, no, I think you just need to basically, we put our strategic networks exactly where they needed to be, and only let the people on it who needed to be on it. So the cell size stayed big, etc., etc.
So considering that, like, I mean, obviously it is very complex, right? That this net slicing, swapping, steering, all of this
Dicing.
Within the net, right? Chopping.
I've just invented network dicing.
Stirring.
I like network dicing. I think there's room in network dicing. I'm gonna run with that one.
It's like a square. You get a square of the network. What was I going to say though? How? Because at the 6G summit, so much is talked about, and yes, I think that what I came away with was it's not really, at least for myself, the question is no longer like, what is the 6G technology going to bring us? Like, okay, fine. But it's like, how are we going to do this piece of framework and standardization better than we have before without spending a whole bunch more money, without having to, because the big question was who's going to pay for it. And so, but one of the lighthouse themes that they kept talking about is this ubiquitous harmonization of spectrum and being able to do, like the topic that you brought up, the low Earth orbital satellite, space, air, sea, right? And even things like your defenders as private networks for these moments, right? So how you think that's all just a pipe dream?
Well, no, but I think honestly, the analogy I'll give on this, and I think it's quite important for the sort of the gig economy in a whole, is that the network that they talk about in general when they're talking about this is 1, 2, 3, 4 network operators trying to make tens of thousands of cells cover 90x% of the population. Which the analogy I can really only give is like a flagship carrier. You know, it's like a Lufthansa or an Emirates or a BA, and yeah, they can do a good job of getting you to most of the places most of the time, but they're never going to be able to get you from Heathrow to Glasgow when you want to go. And this is where I think this is where I'm going to. There's no strategic thinking in this other than I've just thought about it off the sleeve cuff.
Basis of the question.
Network dicing is basically, I think, no matter how well you try and plan a network, and even when we network planned a showground, we do have to move around, and
right.
The idea that you can cover everything with the 220, what is it? I think I can't remember, there's like 2,000 airports in the UK, but only 20 of them you can land a jumbo in, right? So, the big network operators can only operate on big sites in big places, and they can only really make their money the network work by putting the vast majority of their masts in places like London, right? Because there'll always be footfall.
Right.
And so all of that kind of dicing and theory it applies to there. But the reality is, and especially post-pandemic, is a lot of people want to live in different areas, and we all want to have events in different areas. We want to have a second house in different areas. We want to be able to go to and have connectivity, and that's not a dicing thing. It's a small cells thing, and it's a mobile small cells thing, because you can't just kind of up a mast from the top of the you can't just move the Hilton Hotel where 5 networks have their mast on the top.
Okay, so the guy from BT was kind of in a headline, attention-grabbing headline after it. No, the cloud. He was in the cloud. They uploaded him Willy Wonka style into the cloud. I stood there. It was a live experiment, and they disintegrated the BT dude, and then they re-aggregated him on the other side. It's fantastic.
It's typical. And what was his headline before I distracted you? His headlining?
Right. So the headline was something like BT tech guru says there's no pot of gold. He was like, who's paying for it? Right. And it's not like the carriers ever really had, because the economic regulator from, I believe Brazil, don't quote me on that, but he was like, I've made this comment about carriers having a bag of gold under the table. And he was like, definitely gone are those days. And I'm not really sure that ever existed. And he just really was negative about how much it costs to put antennas up, right? And so like this thing where you were just saying about small cells, how much of that, where does that responsibility fall then? Is it a whole bunch of private networks? Does the carrier have to do more antenna placement and, land purchasing and all that kind of stuff?
I honestly don't think, and again, I'm coming back to this analogy before we go on to the next thing, which I think Carl put in, which is quite relevant. I just don't see, they're not set up for that. If a company that's set up, and this is like, I remember that fantastic analogy that they said, Airbnb is the world's biggest hotel company, and they don't own any hotels. And Uber's the biggest car company. They don't own any logistics company or whatever, and they don't own any vehicles. There is, and our whole point of these, small companies, I honestly, if the big fixed network operators beforehand and the mobile operators were going to do this, they would have done it by now. And it's just, it's not that they can't or they won't or they're difficult or it's not in their interest. It's just not in their makeup. It's like trying to ask British Airways or Lufthansa to operate a regional, they do regional. It loses money, regional as in Madrid to London. But even then, it's not going to be Madrid to, they're going to have 10 flights a day from Madrid to Aberdeen. And then from Aberdeen, get you to Perth. It's just... And this is where you can use the analogy in anything. And I think this is a big problem that we've got. We've built this globalization that's fantastic and got lots of overcapacity. At the end of the day, if we are going to have net zero vehicles everywhere and we're going to have coverage everywhere, then the way we cover the rural areas and smaller areas and even not spots within dense urban areas when there are things like communications, etc., is with something more tactical. It's and that's where we got to. So you put in, Carl, the I think Elon Musk and Mike Sievert have seen our Land Rovers and gone, we need a piece of this.
Totally.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? This is the Starlink T-Mobile tie-up. Starlink announced at the beginning of the year that they're going to do direct to handset calls, which obviously have to be terminated on someone's network somewhere, which is technically quite difficult, and therefore we're now end of May, and they've just announced that T-Mobile, as their, I guess, launch partner, are going to start trialing that with a commercial service to follow. I guess a couple of things are probably, there's some strategic implications on that for various players, but there's also the commercial proposition. I guess on the commercial proposition, it'll be fairly expensive as normal to start with, but will it offer rural connectivity? Probably in the bigger countries, or more developed countries, shall I say, like the US, purely and simply because there are so many more, as we've said previously on this thread, so many more satellites being launched every few days,
Yeah.
and therefore you get the coverage. And so from a commercial proposition, it will be available but expensive, and I think it'll be expensive for some time to come. But like all technology, prices come down. So strategically, will there still be a place for other forms of communication if the prices start to match what you can get in the cities? And the reality is probably yes, because private 5G will always have a use, particularly for enclosed networks, for security, quality of service reasons, etc., particularly in manufacturing and larger sites, on the security side of it. But it's coming. What the end game is, I don't know, and I'd be interested on your views on these announcements. That's the royal you. You can both speak at once if you wish.
Christian, after you.
I'm all ears as to what the commercial proposition will be as well.
Yeah,
because I think we have a history of getting these things wrong.
Yeah.
GPRS. But is there a demand? I don't know. I mean, I definitely think there is there's kind of. So I've followed this with interest in that some of the events I still did before I put on even more weight than I had pre-pandemic required you to have a spot, or similar GPS device.
Biking.
Yes, and they would kind of send you an SMS. You could send an SMS from pretty much anywhere, but they were designed properly for you to be able to do that when you fell off your bike, and they would automatically do it. I did find it quite interesting that the Samsung and the iPhones that I've been testing with it, you have to kind of hold it up to the sky and point it. It's like, well, if you've fallen off your bike and you're injured, good luck with that.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Or you're hiding from a bear in a tree, kind of, But again, coming back to the commercials, then I think this is where we're looking at and it comes back full circle to the 5G, right? I mean, the reason we have a model with a network that we can deploy in minutes and dedeploy in minutes and then redeploy somewhere else means that we can have we can support an event for masses of people in the middle of nowhere. The spot devices, I mean, you turn them on very, for the day that you're doing the event, and you turn them off because they're so expensive. Is there a market for people to use that in general? I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be interesting, and it's a great development, but I don't know is the short answer. If they'll get the commercials right and there's enough usage for people to want to make it commercially viable.
Well, I think this is the point, because in this month, and you guys are probably not big readers of this magazine, but in this month's Grazia magazine, which is
I've been subscribed to 3 languages.
Yeah, right. Well, you have 3 daughters, right?
Yeah, they've each got a different language.
There you go, which is incredible in and of its own right. But this article was about saying goodbye to Y2K trends. And they did a study, and 36% of people between 18 and 34 years old have never answered their phone. Never answered their phone. Never, not once, right? And this is not a study that was done from the industry to convince us of how much people are going to use things or how they're going to use things. But it is a real reminder that we have no bloody idea how people who grew up like this, right, are going to use these things, are going to use the use cases that 6G might enable. And is it really necessary then? Are we not going to want our not spots?
So
so long as there's digital equality.
Are you suggesting, Frankie, that there are people in SpaceX and T-Mobile who A, do not subscribe to Grazia magazine, and B, may not have a grip on this generation or two?
Well, here's what I'm saying is that T-Mobile, for whatever reason, seems to be on some sort of spending spree. They bought Sprint and then Mint, and now this thing with Elon,
US
what's happening? Right. And US Cellular, what's going on right now? And so I would need to be much deeper into the T-Mobile strategy at this moment to truly speculate, because from the outside, things are looking a little bit controversial, just to say the least, right? It's just all wow, okay. But I think they certainly need some reality checks, and maybe we all do. That was what this little article said. It also said goodbye to MySpace again for the 100th time. But still.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a whole topic for another session, isn't it? And hopefully it's people who think that physical keyboards on phones are better than screen keyboards on phones. What I did want to test.
Well, Nokia new device, the Nokia went retro, and it is appealing to this same millennial crowd. This Nokia revamp of its best-selling device of all time, or whatever.
I'm getting as much on the new consumer Gen 3. I don't know. Starlink call it Gen 4, but everyone else calls it Gen 3. And
you're not only streaming, you're hosting.
So there's definitely a market for the dishes, and I can honestly see much more of a market for the small cells, but let's see. On that note, we've hosted our first session from the Land Rover in the barn, fully sustainable, Starlink over solar.
It's the bar here in St. Albans.
And even my Nespresso machine, this Nespresso was brought to you via solar power. The fact that it's been shipped around the world and put into aluminium containers of tubus, we will brush over. But it's got me a coffee in the middle of nowhere when the local cafe that only serves from 9 till 2 and serves
pretty incredible
coffee. It is.
It really is. I am such a honest to God fan. You build it.
It's quite exciting in that it's a toy shop of electric motors we need to do a little race around the farm. I can't wait with the little e-cargo bikes, because racing Land Rovers around a field has its risks unless you are the hosts of a very expensive car show. But these little things are going to be a lot of fun. We'll have to do one each. I can't wait. We are progressing. And what I'd love to do is the next one, actually, probably from where you are, Frankie. That looks like a great place to...
Definitely. In fact, this is just the tiniest little room that's here. I mean, I'll tell you, the hub in St. Albans is a very, very serious, wonderful networking, co-working spot and restaurant. You should come try it out.
I thought you were going to say St. Orleans or something. I was going to go. I know St. Orleans doesn't exist, but I thought you were back in somewhere glamorous on the stateside, not in St. Albans.
No, London is the most. I know it's not really London, but COVID changed everything, and so now I'm exploring all the regions that this great country has to offer.
Well, you see, the next one will have to be in different fields and on Starlinks.
I'm coming to the farm next.
And there will be doing it one bar at a time, giving you background.
There will be a little corner of the barn that's going to look like that as well, I think.
Yeah.
On that note,
looking forward to it.
Stay wireless on Wednesdays, and we shall see you, speak to you, hear from you, etc. in the next one.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.